Hi guys, today we're going over lesson 23 for second grade. So we're starting with our first page and we're going to be ordering these numbers from greatest to least. So let's go over our first example. Number 3, we're given the numbers 101, 156, 401, 437. So let's look at the places in the numbers. So we see that there are several numbers with 3 places. So there's a hundredth place. So let's start with comparing that. We have a 1 in the hundredths place here, another 1, a 4, another 4, and a 0. So we have a 1, 4, and 0. And we know that 4 is the biggest, and we have 2 numbers with a 4 in the hundredths place. So those will be our first 2 numbers in the order because they are the biggest. And the second biggest are the 1s. And we know that 0 is the smallest out of these, and there's only one number with a 0 in the hundredths place, so that number, which is 37, automatically becomes the smallest number. So now let's look at the numbers with the same digit in the hundredths place. Let's start with the 400 and the 400. So we know that they have the same number in the hundredths place, so now let's compare the tens place. We have a 0 here and a 0 here. They're the same, so we'll have to move on to the ones place. We have a 0 here and a 1 here. And we know that 1 is bigger than 0. So the number 401 is bigger than the number 400 because there's a 1 in the ones place and there's no 1 in the ones place in the other number. So 401 is the biggest, and the second biggest is 400. Now let's look at the hundreds, or the numbers with 1 in the hundredths place. We'll compare 101 and 156. These two numbers. Now let's look at the tens place in these numbers. There's a 0 here and a 5 here. We know that 5 is bigger than 0. So the number with 5 tens is going to be bigger than the number with 0 tens. You can also see this as this is 15 tens and this is 10 tens, and we know 15 is bigger than 10. That's another way to see it if that is helpful for you. So 156 is the next biggest and 101 is the smallest out of these two numbers, and this is the total order. Now let's move on to number 7. Let's look at the hundredths place first. There's a 0 here, 0, there's a 1, 0, and 0. So we have 0 and everything else, and a 1 in the number 127. We know 1 is bigger than 0. So the number with the 1 in the hundredths place is the biggest number. Now let's move on to the tens place. We have 7, 8, 4, and 1. Now we're comparing the tens place, just the number in the tens places. So let's look at the biggest number out of these 4. Which one is the biggest? 8. So the number with the 8 in the tens place is the biggest number, and that's 82. So we can cross that out. Now the next biggest, we have 7, 4, and 1, is 7, because 7 is bigger than 4 and 1. So 79 comes next. Now let's look at the 4 and the 1. We have 45 and 13. Now we know 4 is bigger than 1, so 45 is the next biggest, and then 13 is the smallest. Now let's look at subtraction. Let's start with number 1. We have 800 minus 200. So we'll rewrite the numbers by vertically stacking them here. Let's look at the ones place. 0 minus 0, which equals 0. 0 minus 0, again, which equals 0. And then 8 minus 2 in the hundredths place is 6. So 800 minus 200 is 600. Now let's look at number 5. We have 600 minus 70. Make sure to line up the places. This is the ones place, and this is the tens place. So you have to line those up. So let's look at the ones place right here. We have 0 minus 0. In the tens place, we have 0 minus 7. And since we can't do that, we're going to have to regroup 1 from the hundreds place and move it to the tens place. So we have 1, we'll do that in black. So we have 10 minus 7 in the tens place, which is 3. And then we have a 5 minus nothing, or 5 minus 0. And that equals 530. Now let's move on to solid shapes. The instructions say to write the number of flat, rectangular, square, circular, and triangular faces in each shape. So we're only looking at the flat faces. So let's start with number 3. We have a base right here. This is the base, and it looks like a square because the length right here looks like about the same as the width. So that means we have 1 square face. Now let's look at the triangles on these sides. We'll keep a tally so we don't lose track. This is our first shape, our first triangular shape. And then this is our second triangular face right here. Now let's look at the face in the back right here. That's another triangular face. Then let's look at this one right here. I erased the one on this side. And that is the last triangular face. We went all around the pyramid and looked at the faces, and we saw that there were 4 triangular faces. That means there is 0 rectangular and 0 circular. If you look here, there are no circles or rectangular flat faces. Now let's go on to word problems. So we'll go over number 4. It says that there are 546 people in classrooms at an elementary school. 21 of them are teachers and the rest are students. How many students are there? So to do this, we're going to subtract the number of teachers from the total to find the number of students. So let's do 546 minus 21. Let's look at the ones place. We have 6 minus 1, which equals 5. 4 minus 2 in the tens place, which equals 2. We'll bring down the 5. So the rest are students, and the rest is 525. So there are 525 students. And that's how you solve these questions. And I hope this was helpful.